Hello.
Yes,
I'm so sorry, I got dropped off.
sure, no problem, sir. So I welcome you, sir, to our session today. Kindly start.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a brief introduction, Joseph. So good afternoon, all of you. I'm going to actually take 30 to 45 minutes of your time, and I'll try my best to just enlighten you about few points which Joseph has just explained me. Like today's session is mainly covering the career guidance as well as how to face interview. Now, as a part of my career, I am actually junior to Uday Patkar sir. So I was one batch junior to him, and I almost have say 15 years of experience, 15 years of IT experience. So in my whole career, I was working as a technology consultant or solution architect, and my mainly expertise is taking solutions, like taking a requirements from clients and creating a solutions for.
Okay, the
So just give me 1 minute. I'm just getting cutting off over here. I'm just going to a good internet connection. Just give me 1 minute.
yeah, sure, sir, sure, no problem, sir. So you could try and switch off your video. That will give you an increased bandwidth. Yeah, so you can talk easily.
Sure, sure. I'll do that. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Top and down the right column.
Yes,
So as I said, okay, you are now. Am I audible?
yes, sir, yes, sir. Completely fine. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So I think now it will not have a disconnection of call. So as I said, like in my 15 years of career, I was mainly involved in taking a requirement from client and guiding it to a technology development team. So as a part of my curriculum, I used to actually work with the requirement, or I used to take technical interviews for candidates. Team creation or team management was one of my main uh,
Expertise.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
And yes, and as a part of those responsibilities, I have taken almost say 300 plus interviews so far. And I thought, like, as you people are actually going to have those interviews very soon in your career, so I thought I can just give you some guidance, some pointers to that, so that it will help you whenever you are appearing for an interview. Maybe most of your team have already got an offer as they are in their final years, but in case they have to actually appear for interview next time in their career, these guidelines may help to them. So as a part of starting of my session, I am just going to briefly cover about what kind of like career path normally our engineers normally have, and what kind of structure IT companies normally have for their resources. At any point of time, if anybody has any question, they can just quickly put it on a chat, either to me or to Joseph, whatever is
Yes,
comfortable,
definitely.
and then we can I'll try my best to answer those. So let me start with the structure of IT company. Now, in case of IT company, there are, like, no doubt the main percentage is covered by a development side. So mainly maximum people are into a development side. So development then have different kind of, again, categories or different kind of bifurcation, like say Java development team, .NET development team, database team, ETL team. ETL is basically there are tools, then reporting team, then cloud team, full stack developer, min stack developer. So all these kind of developers are there. Then the next bigger part is basically QA, quality assurance team. Quality assurance team has mainly two categories. One is people who actually take care of quality assurance, and there are other team who actually do audits. So normally small scale companies like our austere system is maybe considered as a small scale company, or it may be basically at the start of mid scale. So for small scale companies like ours, we do have development team and we have quality assurance, but there are no audit teams. But bigger companies like Infosys, Cognizant, Wipro, they all have all these kind of divisions. So development company or development team, already everybody knows what those team members will be doing. So they'll be taking care of development of all kind of client requirements. But in case of quality assurance, testing team or quality assurance team will have different kind of categories. First is quality assurance, that is basically covering a manual testing, automation tester, then performance testing. Then it might have say like alpha tester or beta tester. Beta tester are nothing but end users. So beta testers are normally part of not our team but are of client team. Alpha tester are basically a team who is actually working as a business analyst. So that is another section of our hierarchy. So business analyst is like that we will cover in that next section. But like these are basically types of testing testers. So mainly manual tester and automation tester are having more coverage. Having more coverage. So like manual testing, it starts for any testing or any tester's career, and then he shifted to automation, or he may grab the automation tools, understanding of automation tools, and once he grabbed that, then he's shifted or he might involve himself or herself in performance testing. Okay, then the next section comes is basically auditors. That is also again considered as a part of quality assurance team. So what auditors do, auditors identify whether development team and your quality assurance team or testing team are following all kind of processes. So why it is required, I'll just give you a simple example. Like I'm doing a development, I'm a developer, and I have say few members from your college, like say all Akash are in my team, and now they develop a very good application. Now as a part of their career development or as a part of their career improvement, they are leaving my company. So when they are leaving, there are new resources coming in, and if those new resources are not having ample documentation, like what Akash team has done or what your team has actually worked upon, the new team which is coming or who is taking over their responsibilities, they will face lots of challenges. And as a part of our IT company, we have these kind of scenarios occurring very often. Like people will come in, people will move out of our organization. So to make sure all kind of understanding, knowledge transfer has been transferred completely from one team to other team or from one person to other person, there is the importance of documentation. And this is basically particularly covered by auditor team. So whether there is a sufficient documentation available, then there are different type of documentation. Like, did you have SRS? Did you have DRD created, design requirement document, or did you have BRD with you? Then did you have design documents? Then did you have a code implementation document, a code reference, what kind of code you have written, what kind of libraries you have used, what are their dependencies, what are third party libraries you have used, what are their versions, all those kind of things, whether you have documented or not, that is exactly what we have to cover into this section. Then from testing perspective, like like let's consider a simple scenario of manual testers. So normally what manual testers do, once development team complete their unit testing, they deploy the version of application to testing environment or QA environment. We call it as staging environment. And once it is deployed to staging environment, they have to do a testing. So how they are doing testing? Is it on ad hoc basis? Like they are just clicking screen anywhere and they are just checking whether there are bugs, or whether it is in a organized way. Organized way in the sense they will have list of requirements given by client, and against those each requirement we will test all the scenarios. So there is a concept of RTM, requirement traceability matrix. So what that matrix does, it actually have client requirement. Against client requirement we will have login requirement, we will have a software requirement, and against those software requirements we will have implementation, we will have design document, we will have testing test cases. So let me explain that with a simple example. Client has given a requirement like I need a authentication. Now when client says authentication, that is converted to our software requirement as login functionality. Now login functionality, what exactly you need? You might have a user ID password login, you might have login with Google, you might have login with Facebook, you might have login with LinkedIn, or you might have login with mobile OTP. So all these kind of different requirements are coming into software requirement. BRD was only having one requirement, authentication feature. But that authentication feature, when you are converting to a SRS, it has been converted with 5 requirements. And for each requirement, developer has to write the design document, developer has to create the implementation, and tester has to test each and everything, each and every scenario, right? So when they are testing scenarios, how they are documenting their results. Like login with Facebook, might be you are able to log in with Facebook, but are you capturing the basic information which Facebook is giving to you, and whether that is getting stored in your database? How we can test it? When I say, for example, I log in with Facebook, so Facebook has given me my name, it has given my mobile number, it has given my email ID, and all these information are stored in database, and a user can review or view that information from mobile app, or sorry, from mobile or from web through profile option. So if that is actually getting shown, that means that functionality is complete. So this kind of tracking is done using a documentation. So these will be coming in a test scenarios of tester, and these scenarios are written with reference to software requirements, and those are handed over to development team. So development team knows what exactly they have to cover. They will do their unit testing, and once their unit testing is done, they will hand it over to testing team.
Okay.
Now these kind of applications or products have normally deployments happening very soon, like say after every week or after every 2 weeks. So the problem becomes, like, if you have so many frequent requirements or deployments, you will be facing a challenge in testing those. Like testing your A to Z functionality, consider one person might take say 4 working days, and if we are having a deployment every week, then that person will be busy testing everything,
Okay.
right? So
Yes.
to avoid these kind of scenarios, what normally companies do, this is basically in case of product company, they take care of creating a automation test cases. So your automation test case tools like Selenium, Jenkins, they automatically test all
Yes.
your scenarios, and as manual intervention is not involved, instead of spending say 4 days, we might have everything tested in 1 day
1 day. Yes.
or say 8 hours. So that is what automation testing is all about. Once automation testing is done, there might be a requirement of performance testing. Like say, for example, you are having 400 users logging into application one time, or 500 users logging into application one time. So in this case, you may have a problem in a performance, or you are not getting a required performance. So to test that with your current server configuration, hardware configuration, or your software configuration, you need to have these kind of testing of performance aspect done, or it is required to have those performance aspect tested. So that is why performance testing is part of our team. So this is about development and QA. Now there is another important aspect of team, which is basically a business analyst. So what this team is taking care of, this team is actually understanding the requirement or BRD from client. Then they convert those requirements to a software requirement, and then they cover a software requirement completely and let client know, like, this is how your application will look like, or they are the team who actually convince our end client what are your requirements. Like normally in case of end users or end clients, they may not having a complete perception of what they are expecting. So business analysis or business analyst team are the team who are taking care, or are the people who are taking care of conveying client what exactly you are actually required and how that will be achieved in a software requirement.
Okay.
So then that business analyst team actually bridge the gap of end users as well as a development team, because development team is near to implementation. They may not have understanding of business. End user are near to their business. They are not having understanding of how Java works or how .NET works or how reporting methodology works. So to bridge gap between those two different teams who are at extreme end, there is a business analyst team. So
Okay.
this is a very important team. And then last team is basically a support team. So support team is required for arranging an infrastructure, providing a proper access, then arranging a development environment. It might be VPN required, it might be database installation required, it might be Java version required. So all those kind of things are actually arranged by normally those support teams. So now if I consider the total team size of say 10 people, out of those 10 people, I might consider one as a project manager, one as a one as a project leader, who may work as a team leader also, and then 6 people will be working as the developers. Okay, so and out of that, one person will be working as a tester. So normally ratio of testing team is 10 to 20%. In some odd cases, it might go to 25 to 30%. But support team and QA team are ranging from 10 to 20% of your whole team size. So this is about basically a career opportunities for IT industry. So as I said, development team is one, testing team is second. Testing team has two parts. One who is actually taking care of quality assurance. Second, who is just taking care of whether everything is followed properly or not. That is the auditor team. Then there is a third team, business analyst, and fourth, a support team. Now, if I see education requirement for all these four faculties, so BE, MCA, MCS, or say BCS, all these people are required for testing team as well as for development team. Business analysts are normally MBA guys who actually MBA in any faculty. They might be HR, they might be in finance, they might be in sales, because all those people understand their domain, and then they actually can bridge the gaps. It might be MBA IT also. So MBA people are working as a business analyst, and then support team who actually at very say lower level in terms of education stack. So any people who are having any education background, but they should have a domain knowledge. So it might be person is from BCom background or BA background, but if he has understanding of network systems, he can be hired or he can be working as a support team member for network teams. So this was basically a brief understanding of complete structure of IT. And then there are different hierarchies like say director or technical director, then senior project manager, assistant project manager, project leader, team leader, and then developer. So all these hierarchies completely varies team to team and company to company. So this was brief about the structure of company. Anybody has any doubts?
Yeah.
Like we can take a 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Sure. There are a lot of questions coming in, sir.
Go
So,
ahead, please.
yeah. So the first and foremost question that is coming in, see that since you said in the beginning of your session, you have taken a bunch of interviews, like almost 300 plus, right? So what is the one key factor you see in a candidate before selecting him other than his technical knowledge?
Okay, okay. Let me just explain. Anyways, that is something we are going to cover in detail in my next part. But let me start, or let me just address that question very quickly or briefly over here. So now, as I said, technical aspect of yours or technical knowledge of any person is one of the aspect, but is not everything. So as I said, uh, it is just one aspect. The main importance of any interview is the attitude of person. Like if say for example I am requiring a person to work as a team member, I'm going to verify his technical skills, whether he is capable of doing things. The other thing apart from that is in case he is not able to do exactly what I am actually asking him to do, whether he is having a attitude to learn. Like normally for any project, it is actually having say 3 months, 7 months, 4 months implementation. And these kind of implementations normally have people who actually may learn things quickly. So if they are having a learning attitude, then there is no problem. If you are actually working with any company, it is very rare you will get always what you are actually requiring or what you are expecting or what you are wanting. If you get that, well and good. But if you don't, are you comfortable or are you adaptable to the situation of company? That is next thing any interviewer actually look into. Then apart from that, they also take care of how many companies you have switched in your total career. Like, are you a frequent switcher? Like, in case you have a frequent switch, there might be genuine reasons at some point of time, but there might be some problem with yourself. Like, say for example, you are not able to work with a, like say, I normally get a reasons, like say why you have switched companies so many times. So somebody say like I was not able to cope up with the team leader, I was not able to work with them, or I don't have the technology requirement which I am actually requiring, or there might be salary reasons. Like I wanted to grow in a like I wanted to grow financially, so that is why I shifted from this company to other company for getting more hike, and then within 1 year I shifted again to next company for getting more hike.
More high.
at 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 any point of time, I'm not arguing or I'm not giving a reasoning like why you should not shift a company when you are working for any one company for higher salary hikes or for getting higher financial benefits. Everybody is working for money, so there are no doubts whether they should go for that or not. But when you are doing that, there is normally a methodology or process or guidelines for an industry. Whenever you are shifting a company, it should be at least 2 years you should spend with the organization. So that is why whenever you are joining a company, you should be very sure, are you going to spend 2 years with this kind of company? So just to give you an example, at an initial level, I might join any small scale company. After spending say 1 year, 2 years with that, whenever I'm joining a new company, I should always focus or I should always see whether my new company is bigger than what my current company is. And if it is not, still can I spend at least 2 years in that company? So if I have to say in other words, for any company or for any candidate, the ideal period to spend with any company is 2 years.
Okay. So
In
actually,
some practical scenarios,
please go on. Yes.
yeah, in some practical scenarios, they might leave it in 1 year or 1.5 years because they have been shifted to new house and that location is very far from their current position likewise. So
Okay.
these
So,
are few aspects
yes.
which we are going to cover in detail in our next session. But in case you have any more questions, please go ahead.
Yes, that actually brings me to my next question. Supposingly, you said that whenever we switch from one company to another, we have to look that the company is bigger than our previous one, and are we ready to settle down there for another 2 years, right? So,
Correct.
what if someone comes across a situation where he's getting a pay hike, he's getting a promotion, but the next company is actually smaller than the previous company. Supposingly, I'm working in TCS currently, and I get a job offer from some low scale company, but I am being promoted as the head, and the salary hike is good. So should I switch it?
Okay. So let me answer this question. When I say next company is bigger, that doesn't mean it is bigger in size, or that doesn't mean it is bigger in numbers or in revenue or something like that.
Okay.
When I say bigger, my intention of saying that was bigger or more in terms of benefits. Now,
Okay.
benefits might be in terms of technology,
Mhm.
but like say right now you are working in a TCS and you are just supporting a traditional core Java application,
Mhm.
and now you have been recruited to a austere as say project leader, wherein you have to take care of 5 projects at a time, wherein you will get a good technical exposure.
Okay.
So now here in a austere you are going a bigger technical exposure. That is a bigger thing for you as compared to TCS.
Okay.
Now TCS have headcount of 3 lakhs, austere has headcount of 100.
Okay.
So there is no comparison of headcount.
Mhm.
In case of number of resources, there is no like in case of number of employees, there is no comparison. In case of salary, it might be like say Austria is paying you same thing like TCS, or it is just giving you 10% hike what you are getting in TCS. But here it is bigger in terms of benefits which you are getting specifically.
We should rather focus on the personal growth then. That's what switching from one place to another will look at. Okay.
Correct, 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 correct.
Then, sir, there's one more question coming up here. See, whenever we freshies, when we go out there for job interviews, right? So we are always challenged by the people. When we go in bigger companies, we are always challenged by the people who are higher educational people. So during an interview, the higher education people always have a upper hand in terms of their additional degree. So how do we compete with such people in terms of our interview skills?
Okay, let me just explain you this thing quickly. Education part definitely plays a good role, no doubt about that, but is not the only thing. Okay,
Okay.
so let me give you an example. Like I'm recruiting for a developer,
Hmm.
and I have somebody who is from BE background and other person who is from MTech background.
Yes.
Okay, so don't assume I will always prefer MTech person over BE.
Okay.
Okay, there are different aspects apart from education, but
Mhm.
yes, education always play a good role.
Hmm.
Why is it so? Because people with higher education, it is considered they have higher level of maturity because they have taken more education, so they have spent more time in
Yes.
their career, so they have more kind of maturity.
Project
Let me
exposure.
tell you a simple example. Right, so person who has done a BE, so assume that, like, if I'm not wrong, the person who completes BE is normally of age 21,
Hmm. Yes.
and person
Absolutely.
who completes MTech is normally of age 24.
Hmm.
So as a part of, if you are a MTech, you have already spent 24 years of your learning.
Hmm.
Okay, and if you are actually having a 24 years of learning, you are considered to be more matured compared to 21-year person. But that is not always the aspect. Like it might be a case like some person who has just engineering, who has just done engineering, but he is more matured with respect to like responsibilities, or he is more responsible with respect to everything than a person who is having higher education.
Okay.
But yes, your question was right. Sometimes there is always a preference given to a higher education, but that is required that higher education is full time. If you are considering something like part time MBA, part time MTech, or distance learning MTech, that is not at all advisable, or it is just a waste of money.
Okay. Okay. Sure, sir. Please continue if you would like to add something more.
Okay, perfect. So now this was a brief introduction of like structure of IT industry. Now let's move to the next point of ours. So our next particular thing is how to face interviews or how to go for interviews. So the most important aspect for interviews is a very good non-verbal communication. Okay, so communication actually always have 2 points. One is a verbal communication, and second is non-verbal communication. So non-verbal communication is like when you are going for an interview, how you are actually how what is your appearance.
Mhm.
So dress code is one of them. For example, if I'm going for an interview, I should always wear a casual, sorry, a
Formal.
formal dress code.
Mhm.
I should never have a casual dress code. And in case of formal dress code, I should always have a dress code which is basically faint in color. It should not be very glossy. It should not be like having use of very dark colors. Like say, for example, whenever I'm appearing for an interview, I should always have my dress code so that it should be considered myself as a like what you can say, a polite person or a soft spoken person. Okay,
Simple and
then
sweet. Yeah.
right, whenever you are going for an interview, it is always a case wherein you have to wait for an
Mhm.
interview. Like it might be a case like your interview timing was 3 hours,
Mhm.
sorry, 3 p.m., and you reached to the place at 2:30,
Mhm.
and your interview actually started at say 3:15 or 3:30,
Okay.
because people who are taking your interviews, they are senior managers or they are senior people, and sometimes they might have problems in arranging their time.
Mhm.
So when you have delay in interviews, how you are taking or how you are getting cope up with that kind of scenario? Because most of the cases you are under CCTV, and
Okay.
people who are actually going to take your interviews, they observe your actions. This is what I do normally in most of the cases. So
Okay.
people who are basically relaxed or who are not getting bothered because of delay, they are considered to be more stable mentality, or they are having a stable mentality as compared to people who are just going again and again to a receptionist and asking like when my interview is going to happen, whether it will be in 10 minutes, whether it will be in 5 minutes. So you have to control your anxiety, you have to control your anxiousness. So these are few non-verbal communication. Then how you are sitting, like say somebody is coming from interview room, so are you rushing to him and are you going to ask him like kya pucha? So these kind of things actually hampers your reputation or non-verbal communication. Then when I say verbal communication, it is normally like you are meeting somebody who is not known to you first time. So depending upon the time of day, you have to greet them. You have to wait for them. Like you have to, like if you are actually going to their cabin, you have to just knock their cabin, just ask for their permission. It is not required. Like if you want to call them by sir or madam, normally you have to introduce yourself as you are not knowing their name initially. If you are knowing their name, you can directly call them by their name. Like say for example, if you know Rahul, you can say good morning Rahul, this is Akash, or this is say Nitin. And then like it is but obvious Rahul will actually also greet you, and then he will ask you to have a seat. So once you are sitting, you have to just ask them like you have already given your CV to them, to receptionist. So do you have your CV with them? If in case because of some mistake or because of some mismanipulation they don't have your CV, then you should have another copy of your CV that
Right.
shows you are organized person.
Yes.
Then you should have one pen with you. You should have some piece of blank papers with you, so that in case he asks you something, you can use your blank papers. You don't have to wait him to offer you blank paper or to offer you pen and all those things. It is not mandatory for you to wear a tie or to wear a full sleeve shirt. You may have a half shirt, or for female candidates there might be a other formal wears, but it should be basically something like people should be aware of, or people should know you are an organized person. So this is related to a formal practice for
Yes.
good verbal as well as non-verbal communication. Now, once you are actually starting with your interview, you have to always start giving brief of your educational background, of your experience, of your technology background. If you are going for technology part, if you are going for testing, you have to give brief what exactly past work you have done. And once you are done with that, you may ask them to proceed with their questions.
Okay.
And whenever they are asking questions, don't cut short them. Let them finish their question. It might be like you are knowing the answer of their question, so never rush to answer. Let them finish their question, and once they finish question, independent of whether you are actually considering that question as a easiest question or that might be the difficult question, your way of answering a question, or speed of answering a question, or tone of answering a question should be always constant. It should not be like for easy question you are rushing to answer, and for difficult questions you are taking some break or some pauses and then you are answering.
Okay.
So it is like always listen and then answer.
Okay.
Then when you are answering, it is but obvious you should be answering very briefly. In case the person to whom you are answering, he is not able to understand your question, then you may have to explain it in a bit, and that person may actually ask you those questions, or ask you some other questions for your explanation. But whenever you are answering a question, don't be too explanatory, because it has two impact or two problems.
Okay.
If you are too explanatory, the interviewer might get bored with your answer. Hello.
Yeah, just one. Yes, yes, please continue. Okay, I'm really
Okay.
sorry to interrupt you there, sir. Since you are very short on time, we'll have to conclude this session here. And I'm really thankful to you for coming here and giving us the brief about, the interview and the total hierarchy of the session. and from the entire BVP.
Do you think we can?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah, what I was saying, is it possible to rejoin everybody, because that is what Uday Patkar sir told me.
Yeah, sure, sir. No problem. If you're okay with that, we can definitely do that. Sure, sir. No problem.
Yes, yes. So if session actually ends, we can rejoin and then
Please continue, sir. Please continue.
Okay, sir. As soon as this finishes, we'll set up one more. Yeah,
Sure.
sure. Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.